ठीक है। इज इट कोल्ड इन मुल्तान फिल्जा? सर्दियां आ गई हैं?
सॉर्ट ऑफ ठंडा गर्म मिक्स है, पंखा एक साइड पे चल रहा है।
अच्छा।
अगर अपने ऊपर चलाओ तो ठंड गर्मी सर्दी लगती है, और ना चलाओ तो गर्मी लगती है। सो इट्स लाइक, हाउ अबाउट इन लाहौर? और शहर कहाँ
I'm
होती
wearing a
है?
sweater.
लाहौर और
Seher is in
सांबा?
Lahore. Yeah.
I'm wearing a sweater,
लाहौर।
yes.
I'm wearing
ओ
a
वाह।
sweater too, बाबा। मुझे तो
Yeah.
I can't afford to get sick. मेरा तो पूरा घर वगैरह सब कुछ खराब हो जाता है।
हमारा तो आजकल कोविड इज, मुल्तान इज ऑन द हॉट प्लेट।
Oh
Yes,
no.
yes, it is. It really is.
सरप्राइजिंगली जितना हम समर्स में बिल्कुल कम था मुल्तान में, विंटर्स पे आज मैं वी आर इन द सेकंड मोस्ट इन्फेक्टेड सिटी राइट नाउ।
I'm not following. Oh, that's really bad. Are people
pretty
following
bad.
SOPs?
No, not
No,
really.
no, but
पता है 12 रबी लेवल पे जलसे मिलाद इतने ज्यादा हुए हैं, and
I know.
everything, it's very bad. निश्तर भर गया है. Very close people of mine, I know that friends,
Hmm. Hmm.
they're hospitalized. They're pretty in a pretty bad state.
Okay, ladies.
Okay.
Oh,
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Kaarvan Crafts Foundation. I'm delighted to have with me here today two extremely impressive ladies who are Wonder Women in their own right. The type of work that they do, I think, is exemplary. It really serves to have them, I think, more in the public eye, which hopefully they will be after I'm done with them tonight. Please let me introduce to you, we have here with us Seher Anis, Head of International Donor Desk at TEFTA, and she is also founder of Quirky & Co. Seher is a social and development practitioner. She has an undergraduate degree in economics from LUMS, a postgraduate degree in development economics from SOAS, and recently finished her fellowship in global public policy from University College London. Seher has had more than 16 years of work experience with multilateral and bilateral donor-funded projects, non-profit organizations, and more. Currently, she heads the International Donor Desk at TEFTA and has actively engaged in restoring livelihoods of local artisans from all over Pakistan through her brand, Quirky & Co. I'm also delighted to introduce to you Filza Mumtaz, who is the CEO of the Multan-based exclusive boutique Shah's Embroideries. Filza is an advocate of women's economic empowerment and set up WEEN, a platform that actively works to create an enabling environment for enterprising women, especially in the handicraft sector. Under Filza, Shah's Embroideries has become a bustling social enterprise, and nearly a decade later, Filza is a strong influence in keeping the local craft, especially in South Punjab, alive, whilst promoting the regional cottage industry through skills development, better wages, and an enabling work environment. Filza was given the honor of being the president of the Multan Women Chamber of Commerce and Industry in 2017 to 2018. Ladies, wow, I am floored. Welcome to Kaarvan Crafts Foundation.
thank you.
Thank you.
Now, we've heard a lot about COVID destroying the economy, ruining sectors, livelihoods have been affected, and the constant that has been there is people from the underprivileged or the lower socioeconomic backgrounds have been hurt the most. Now, whether it's Vogue, whether it's the United Nations, whether it's DFID, whether it's international or even Pakistan's government, the one question is, how do we build a sustainable future? And what's interesting is when they talk about sustainable, it's such a broad term, but there's so many links to it. And one of the things that I found is when people are talking about sustainable, they're talking about locally produced, cultural based items. Long gone are the days when we had Gap and Mango and Next and Zara chains. They are now collapsing. So, Filza, I'd like to start with you. What does sustainable mean for you, sitting in Multan, working, you're on ground, literally working with these artisans, you're training them. What does sustainable mean for you in this new post-COVID world? Well, I shouldn't say post-COVID, we're still undergoing transformation.
I think sustainable now, it's high time we need to realize is that, especially in this COVID has hit us so hard and it has made us learn so many things. And in particular, we need to see that, sustainable is, if we want to sustain in these times, we need to go back to our, basics. A lot of things we're going back to basics.
Yeah.
So even when it comes to our, you know, buying preferences, we should go towards basics. Like, why not buy from your own people? We've seen people suffer, we've seen people being affected. So sustainable would be, let's support our local industry, let's build it up. We've done, like you said, कि इतने सारे donors, इतनी सारी organizations working, but why aren't we still getting the benefit that we're looking out to get from it? So sustainable for me would be buying made in Pakistan and bought in Pakistan. Maybe we can sell it out, but let's buy from Pakistan and made in Pakistan.
Got it. Got it. Seher, would you agree with Filza, or do you have your own take on what sustainable means?
Absolutely, I totally agree with Fiza on that. I mean, during the COVID-19 situation, it has become even more pronounced how much we have to rely on our own industry, how much we have to grow our own industry, especially in this time of globalization when competitiveness has increased manifold. We have
Yeah.
relied so much on other economies like China. Everything that you see around you has been made in China. It has actually destroyed the entire industry, whatever that we had, even cottage industry, the mushrooming industry that we see right now. So I think during this lockdown, during these times of this pandemic, it has become acutely important that we need to grow our own industry and rely on our local crafts, because these are the people who are poorest of the poor, and if they are not generating income for themselves, then your country can't develop. So, in order to develop the not just these communities, but overall the entire spectrum of economic growth, you have to start producing locally.
Okay. So, Seher, when you say you have to start, Filza, I'm going to come back to you. Your mother set up Shah's Embroideries back in the 90s, if I'm not mistaken, early
Yeah,
90s.
yeah.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that people often say is that we have to start somewhere. एक औरत से शुरू करो, पांच औरतों को रख लो हो, घर से काम कर लो. That's been happening, Filza. It keeps happening. There are so many small businesses online. For example, if we look at Maria Umar's platform, Musavi, if we look at other Facebook groups, mummy blogs, they're all full of small businesses. But like you said, there's not, you don't see that beneficial change. Why is, what are we missing out? And by we, I mean, for example, if I'm a development organization and I come to you and I say, oh well, look at all this happening, these are women entrepreneurs, but you, on the other hand, you're saying that we're not getting the full benefit. What's, why is there a disconnect? मतलब हम कह रहे हैं कि ये हो रहा है, आप कह रहे हो ये नहीं हो रहा. What's going on?
What I personally believe is that, when I started off like 8 to 10 years back, तो उस वक्त तो बड़ी wishful thinking होती कि overnight embroideries का brand बन जाएगा, फलाना हो जाएगा. बात ये थी, having business education, business background. I started off okay. Once money start coming in, तो आप laid back हो जाते कि चलो client तो बन गए हैं. And exhibitions हो रही हैं, you're doing it informally as long as money is coming in, आपका circle चल रहा है, your artisans are being paid. But like after 8 years, I realized it hit me here. When I was the president, I used to go around, ask people, we're empowering women. Please fund us, support us for this. We do this annual fair. It was my brainchild, the Blue Fair. All those women artisans in this South Punjab ka region, we accumulate them together under the flagship of our Women's Chamber Multan. And we do a trade fair for them every year. We wanted to do it so that they have a connection and they reach out to international markets and national markets. Kept on doing it for so many years and it hit me here. अंदर का इंसान जागता कहता है कि what have we gained? Every year we put up an exhibition, and when we go to TDAP or if we go to SMIDA and they ask us how many of you are exporting, and we're like, uh, uh, and they're rightly, it's rightly so. Okay, what have we achieved? Why haven't even person like me? Why am I doing indirect exports? Why am I so shy to get into exports? It's because हमने भी नहीं किया और हमें enabling environment भी नहीं मिला. There's so many people working for women. I've done like 2 round tables with my platform Ween, just to make all those organizations working for women to sit together and see where's the bridge that we need, we need to bridge.
Yes,
तो क्या gap है जो हमने bridge करना है? Why so many, इतना donor sector है, इतना development sector है, आप artisans को empower कर रहे हैं, आप कह रहे हैं कि हम रातों रात artists को उठा के entrepreneur बना दें. Fine, I agree. मैं ये नहीं कह रही, because a lot of people treat us, people who are working with artisans, as middlemen, और वो निचोड़ के और वो choose के. No, I mean, like, just because this volume is low, volume छोटा होता है, industrialist के पास भी तो middlemen ही होते हैं ना यार. We can fight for right wages. Why doesn't the development sector or the government fight for fair wages, fair profits, fair shares? Why are we just on this race that every person who has a skill needs to become an entrepreneur? Had it been so, why do we have art galleries? Why doesn't every artist start selling? Because if somebody tells me to start doing embroidery, I can't do it. So we all need to sit together and everybody has to look inside them. हम सबकी गलतियां हैं. It's just not, we can't blame the development sector or the government or anybody. It's everybody who needs to be, But it's high time we need to get together. Like dushman se seek, I shouldn't be using such words, but we need to learn from our, look at India. Where has India's cottage industry reached?
yes, yes, you're
हमने
right.
कभी cottage industry को industry नहीं treat किया. हमने कहा बस मेले ठेले पे रखो और that's it.
That's true. The cottage industry is not really recognized. Bilkul. Say, why is the cottage industry not recognized, given that women make up a large force of the Pakistani economy? They are unrecognized by the World Bank because the World Bank says only 1% of Pakistan's workforce is female. Now, I will give them the excuse that they're not familiar with Pakistan, but as Pakistani women here, we know better. But still, unless someone from the urban area steps in or someone who has an influence steps in, I don't see it happening. I don't see that social mobility changing. So, what's going on?
Meher, there's just not one reason for that. There's so many factors. It's lack of education. It's like we have to kind of understand the kind of society we are living in. We live in a society which is segregated. Men and women don't work together. It is discouraged by women to work, like work in the mainstream. So when women are working in silos in their own houses, they just can't make a product and then expect, overnight they're going to reap economic returns out of them. They need support of various stakeholders: community, men, policymakers, change makers, NGOs, non-profit organizations, private sector. So for example, I feel our women have a lot of talent, but just production of that talent is not enough. I mean, we have to consider the demand. We have to consider who's buying it. People who have the purchasing power are not living near those women. We are the ones who have the purchasing powers in the urban centers, or for that matter, abroad. So what we have to do is connect these women, educate these women on the design sensibilities, on how to value their product, on how to access the right kind of raw material, how to bargain, how to put premium to their products. So one can't really blame these women when they're living in remote areas. Sometimes USAID will fund a certain project, a few people will go visit these remote areas. They'll be like, fine, for the next 6 months we'll do your hand holding, we are going to emancipate you, create, like we were discussing earlier, an enabling environment for you to work in. But what happens when the donors pull out? Do they actually build the capacity of these women? Because I've seen a lot of instances in which a lot of money comes. What happens is they build an office, they hire their own staff, they hire consultants. So all the salaries, all the money, not all the money, like a very large percentage of the money is accrued to them. What little is left, with that, for example, you'll hold 2 workshops, 3 workshops. That is too little a time to build the design sensibilities of these women, right? And in this new age, people are just so tech savvy right now. So everyone, like, she was saying that not everyone can become an entrepreneur, but everyone has become an entrepreneur because of Instagram and Facebook. Everyone can just open up a page, put some products up on it and start selling. these women who are actually making the product, they don't have the facility of internet, they don't have the facility of how to even use a phone. And so their products are lying over there. The middleman is making all the money by going to these areas, procuring those products, selling it on a profit, and giving very little profit margin to these women. So
Yeah.
that's why I think they haven't been able to flourish. That's my understanding of it.
Yeah.
I would
Go.
like to add in something here, not disagreeing with Sahar, but what I would like to say is like, for example, sitting here with Kaarvan, you know, a lot of women have access to, the artisans. We have Vasila, we have Kaarvan, we have Sabah, Pakistan.
Mm,
Women have access to,
mm,
selling their
mm,
products. But then again, why isn't it sustainable for them? That is because,
mm,
baat wohi hai ki it's, you know, they need to have the design sense, then the whole value chain has to be established.
mm,
So they
mm,
have to have an end buyer who's willing to buy what they're producing. Just give them a
mm,
platform and they start selling. It won't, because
mm,
unless there's a demand for what they're making, how will they
mm.
sell it? So there's somebody who needs to market the product very nicely, somebody to give it a little value addition. It's their product. Let's show
Mm,
the entire value chain to the end buyer,
mm,
so that there's no
mm,
middleman concept in it. And
mm,
it's
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, here, this, Filza, I like what you said, that you have to add value. And say,
mm,
you raised a very, very important point, that very little profit, very little money actually, comes down, has the trickle down effect is minimal. It's
mm,
literally peanuts. Now,
mm,
when I look at organizations such as Behbood,
mm,
which I have often said, and I still stand by it, and I don't know why people can't see it.
mm,
Behbood has the potential to be the next accessorize,
mm,
from Pakistan, given the craft that they have. How has Behbood made it work? Because Behbood often has a market, the business model is they make limited pieces, they put them up, and they sell them. And they're innovating with their craft, they're innovating with their designs and colors.
mm,
How has Behbood, that also is started off by, I think it was Mrs. Abda Malik, in a garage.
mm, mm,
And I look at Behbood and I think, here's a successful social enterprise. It has, I don't think the people who run Behbood have tapped into its potential, because, like I
mm,
said, it can be accessorized. I don't see why there can't be chains of Behbood in the Middle East, for example.
mm,
But
mm.
why have other organizations not been able to imitate that same level of success? Seher, let's start with you first.
Meher, in my view, my understanding of this is that perhaps Behbood, where it succeeded, is it made it a self-sustainable model.
Yes, it
They
did.
weren't relying too much on outside help. What happens with other organizations, they're always pitching in for donor money. So the donors come in for like 2 years or 5 years, and after that, when the money runs out, they just don't know what to do anymore. They are not able to make it a self-sustainable model. And I think Behbood has done it really well. It's like they're working as a cooperative. Like, Amul in India, Amul has now become a cooperative. So what they do is they make the beneficiaries a stakeholder.
Right.
And once they become the stakeholder, there's ownership of the artisans who are working in it. So I think with most of the other NGOs or non-profit organizations for that matter, as soon as the money stream ends, as soon as the hand-holding exercise ends, it just can't move on. That's my understanding.
Sure. No, I agree. And I've studied Behbood. In fact, Sonia Rahman has written a book about it, and it's
Mm,
due to come out this year. And I helped her with the editing process. And you're spot on. It is self sustainable. Filza, you have Shah's embroideries, and Shah's is self sustainable. You've had, I think, the greatest number of years of success, given that I have seen, and I myself have written a book on fashion right now, and उसमें वही था कि boutiques would open up, they would close, दुकानें खुलती थी, दुकानें बंद हो जाती थी. I think the most famous one in Lahore being Sunday. I clearly remember
mm,
दुकान होती थी in Fortress. It was immensely popular, but it finished, it ended as soon as the big boys, the lawn people came in and started partnering with Vaniza and all these other designers to make designer lawn. But somehow Shah's embroideries has sort of, mashallah, nazar na lage,
Alhamdulillah.
has
Yeah, touch
managed to
wood.
sort of stave off all of this, and you've retained a very strong clientele.
Aside because मुझे ये लगता है कि it's because I've developed, you know, true clientele because there are certain people who do value embroidery, do value art, do value these crafts. And the other thing is that the artisans who work with me, like I was saying, that these donor projects, they come and once they're, they've achieved their milestones, they end, and then the artisans are left where to go
Yeah,
then. That
yeah.
happened with me as well. बहुत आए USAID के projects आए. Ahan was a wonderful project which couldn't, नहीं चल सका Ahan भी यहाँ पर. So, I used to have those artisans and that's what they used to do with, they would disappear and I would think, कि पता नहीं, I'm not paying them well, maybe they've left me, I can't buy off them. It's up to them to work for me. But होता यही था कि after 2 months वो दोबारा आ जाती थी. And they used to say we're back and I used to say where did you disappear? They said कि वो भाई आए थे उन्होंने तस्वीरें खींची and they used to pay them exuberantly high because
Oh,
obviously
yeah.
it wasn't going out of their pockets and and they thought कि वो sustain रहेगा वो जैसी project खत्म हुआ तो जाहिर बात है काम भी खत्म हो गया. Then they wanted, so I told them, listen, if I'm earning or I'm not earning, I am going to give you work. If my work is not going on, this because मेरे पास कोई 2000 औरत नहीं है. There's a set of 100 to 150 women that I work with. I tell them कि मेरा काम चलेगा नहीं चलेगा, I promise you, your work will continue. Because the idea of it is that it's a social enterprise. Doesn't mean that I don't make profit. I do. And even
Yeah,
everybody was like, why are you getting into hand
so
embroideries? You're going to lams and flana, and then you're going to those घिसी पिटी embroideries. कौन लेगा? मैंने कहा तुम लोगों ने सेना गई की गलियों में रुला दिया embroideries को. It's such beautiful pieces of art. बाकी चीजों को आप piece of art, oh my God, कह सकते हैं. Why not to somebody that a woman stitches beautifully? And that is how I dealt with them. I said, I'm never going to tell you कि इस कपड़े की इतनी बनवाई है. The more beautiful you make it, the more I'm going to pay you. So that's how it started to, कि वो मेरे साथ हो गई कि अच्छा ये तो हम जितना खूबसूरत बनाएंगे उतना पे करेगी. It's not their fault. They want, अगर उनके पास दो extremes थी. एक वो डोनर आते थे जो उनको बेइंतहा पैसा देते थे. But then again, no sustainability. After 3 to 4 months, when their project is done, they wind up and go. Then they had that middleman
sure.
जो उनको निचोड़ देता था. Then they had those wholesalers because आर्ट को wholesale में बेचना शुरू कर दिया. मेहर, हुसैना गई, all those bazaars where, बिकी पड़ी होती embroideries. So they would like, if they're not paying us, why should we, take pains to make beautiful embroideries? All those old tankas, I wanted to revive them. All those that my mother got, done, they stopped doing it because उसपे इतना effort लगता था और उनको उसकी उजरत नहीं मिलती
Cool.
थी. So that is how Shahs is sustained. और अल्लाह का शुक्र है, now I notice, especially in these COVID times and all, people are really, people are off those disposable fashion. I always say that at Shahs we don't believe in disposable fashion. These pieces of embroidery,
Absolutely.
always keep it with you forever and ever. It can be passed on to generations. It's not something that you wear and just dispose it off. So
No,
that is what
absolutely.
fashion
Absolutely.
is. So I
And
think
this
that's
is
the way
where
it
the
feels
sustainable
to
element comes in. Seher, you set up Quirky in the middle of COVID, and
Mm.
I think that you've had quite a phenomenal response to it because again, we Bata Jati, people want to now buy local, and they want
Yeah.
to take pride in their craft. And this, you know, I will always see things from a historical perspective. Given my love for history and how I work in publishing,
Mm.
I've often find that Pakistan goes through these phases where
Mm.
our fashion industry, the current one, it emerged as a cultural movement, and there was
Yeah.
a lot of pride in wearing, ajrak ke dupatte and balochi
Mm.
kaam and shadow work. I mean, if you look at
Mm.
designers like Han Beg, for example, who've made
Mm.
their empires on what is South Punjab ki shadow work ki kadhai, white on white,
Mm.
सफेद धागे, सफेद शिफॉन पे, सफेद रॉसल पे. And
Mm.
now there was a time, 99 onwards, 2000 onwards, जहाँ पे बहुत पाकिस्तानी से थे, they turned away from their local market to
Mm.
go more international. But I think under COVID, there seems to be a resurgence. People want to know their culture again.
Yeah.
How would
Yeah.
you explain the success you've had with Quirky Sahib, with what you set it up? I mean,
Can
I
you
love it.
repeat the question? Your voice is breaking there.
Sorry,
The
I said,
last bit.
how would you explain Quirky's success? Do you think it's a resurgence of people wanting to buy local, and owning their culture, or do you think it's that because of the economy that people have now turned away from imported things and decided we're now going to now go local? Thank you very much.
Okay, I think Meher, it's a combination, I believe, because I hadn't really intended on starting this. It just happened, I just happened to stumble upon it. Quirky & Co already existed since
I remember.
2005.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was making clutches at that point in time, keeping them in sync with the global trends. And then I'd taken a sabbatical. So this page wasn't running actually for the past 1 year. So what
Right.
happened was, because like I discussed with you, I was working for Kaarvan Crafts Foundation. I worked with them for around 1.5 years. And few of those women I used to work with, they approached me because of the lockdown. They couldn't sell their products. So they said that, would you be able to help us? So I had this page already, and I thought I'll just post their products and let's see what the response is, because I already had a clientele on it. And as soon as I started posting this stuff, the prices were so good, because it's a non-profit venture. We're not keeping any profit on it. The prices were very good, and people
Yeah.
started inquiring about it. But then I actually also asked myself the same question that you just posed. Is it a phase? Why are they buying it? And I was discussing it with my friends also. So two, three answers kind of emerged. Number one, believe it or not, there's this play called Artugal. I don't know. There's this Turkish play that was all the rage during the lockdown. Yeah, the Turkish play. So they were wearing a lot of traditional jewelry, and I started getting inquiries in my inbox. Do you have that Halima Sultan thing that she was wearing? And I was like, okay, I didn't know there was a
Oh.
demand for it. So then I started tapping into that in various districts, and there were things being produced like that. And then with that, I also realized that because a lot of stuff used to come from China, and because of the lockdown, that has halted. So a lot of fashion accessories actually that you find in Pakistan are made in China. And a lot of raw material also that the local artisans are now producing, the raw material is not available in Pakistan. It comes from China, from the Gilgit route, the gems and stones. And then some of the gems and stones come from Afghanistan. So because of the lockdown, these women were kind of struggling with that, and whatever stock they already had, they wanted to sell that off. So I took that from them and started posting that. So they weren't producing anything new. We weren't taking any orders. We were just selling the stock. So right now that
Yeah.
was the situation. But because I started it in COVID-19, so this is the pattern that I've seen so far. But like you said, you never know. Once the barriers are lifted, one doesn't know really how it's going to take a turn. But I do believe one
One
thing.
doesn't really.
Sorry?
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Really, Menika,
Yeah.
one doesn't really know. Absolutely. Yeah. Please.
Yeah, because I think the whole world doesn't really know how this pandemic is going to,
Yeah.
alter the buying patterns, the purchasing patterns for people. But one thing I've realized with time, that people prefer buying things online now, um, and because it's very easy. So there's a lot of shift going towards that. And it's a lot of other things also, how you photograph a product, how you display it, and who is wearing it, because people want to follow other people also. So you have to become a trendsetter for in order for the product to sell. So marketing, I feel, is a huge tool in the success of any product.
Hmm. See, now that's interesting because at Kaarvan, when we had, I think it was in June or July, we had Pakistan's first online exhibition. And we very quickly realized during trainings that it wasn't going to be enough ना just having a बाजी come in जी अच्छा आप कहाँ की हैं मैं लोधरा की हूँ अच्छा लोधरा से आपने क्या काम किया है ये जी शिफॉन पे मैंने कढ़ाई का काम किया है we realized that these women had to be taught how to do their own marketing via social media pages. Because जो आप बात कर रही थी कि कारवां जो है, we train women to be digitally literate, and I really feel that this is the future. You cannot no longer just be on social media बस एक प्रोफाइल पेज बना दिया आज मैंने चाय का कप पिया मैंने नाश्ते में पराठा खाया and that's it. That's not it. You have
Yeah.
to
Hmm.
do so much more. And
Yeah.
so you're right, the marketing makes a huge difference.
Hmm.
But I also feel, and I may be wrong here, ladies, so feel free to say your bits. Um, when I started my little social enterprise, Zuka, about 2 years ago, It came about as a reaction to two things. One, when I was working on my book, there was this it was something that one of the designers said कि हम तो local fabric इस्तेमाल नहीं करते, हम Indian fabrics इस्तेमाल करते हैं. I was like, अच्छा, okay, why would you do that? All right, fine. But that really got me thinking, and the more research I did, I realized the two for indigenous fabrics, which is khadr and malmal, and I fell in love with those two. But I think that's also part of my personality, that I'd like to go down to bare basics. I said, right, I'm going to see what I can do with these two. Let's do a revival. And what I found was that both of you know Pakistan has a very, very young population. Recently I was talking to somebody, Aisha Alif Kayal, and she said, Meher, my average customer is a 22-year-old. अब 22-year-olds को आप क्या बेच सकते हो? You know, Pilza, for example, the stuff that you make, it is exquisite. It is stunning. I see my mother's clothes and I think, my mother's much taller to me, so I don't know if I will ever be able to wear them. But I see them and I think these are heirloom pieces. But that's also a different generation. Now, a 22-year-old is not going to want to wear, chiffon or embroidered, or maybe even want etrogol type, jewelry. They're going to want something new every single month. Now, innovation का जो मसला आ जाता है, that's what I saw, which is why I get a lot of flack when people say, hi, you use खद्दर अपने pouches के लिए, and I'm like, well, आपको खद्दर का जोड़ा बनवा के दो, आप वो पहनेंगे? नहीं. I'm like, तो फिर आप चुप कर जाएं, please. ठीक है ना? But the point is, do you think कि innovation is marketing तो है ही है? Seher, like you said, and Filza, digital literacy is also necessary, absolutely, as well as aesthetic. Like you said, it has to be a product of beauty. Lekin, would I be wrong in saying that innovation is now very necessary for Pakistan's craft to sustain? Filza, aap shuru kare?
Yeah, I totally agree. Innovation, product adaptation, it's very, very important because
The
मैं अपने
designer.
आप को I design sense भी सब चीजों को change. Like, one of these exhibitions I did, like when I started our work, the very next year, I went to France for an exhibition with TDAP, and I was like, "Bada bhai, udhar they love embroidery. It's falana, it's this and it's that." And I went with all those, yards and yards and meters of hand embroidered fabric. And the whole day, trust me, people would come and just interview me and take pictures and will be, in the off. And oh my God, it's all handmade and all done by women. Will laptop at the but at the end, they would say, what will we do with it? I mean, like, they were right.
Yeah.
Because at that time, I just started and I didn't know. और मुझे दुख भी हुआ कि सरकार के पैसे भी ज़ाया किए. But I was, एक guidance नहीं थी. And the very moment I saw Indians, वही चीज इतनी सी पॉकेट पे एम्ब्रॉयडरी का पैच लगा हुआ है, 10 यूरो की कुर्ती बिक रही है और मैं 150 यूरो का एक वो 2 मीटर का पान बेच रही हूँ, so they won't be interested. So obviously we need to do, and home के ऊपर लोग बहुत interested हैं, shows and cushions, and I'm planning to, but I'm planning with a lot of other people कि हम merge in करके, मसला ये है कि हम लोग भी तो clusters में काम नहीं करते ना, अब बस अपने तक ही चीज रखें, आगे ना लेकर जाएं. So it should be a pool of people working together, and innovation is the key to it, especially if you want to tap foreign markets for our craft. And that is where our craft will be cherished more, because we're developing nations. I mean, dal roti ke masail zyada hai as compared to nations which are developed and they have extra money. They can spend on luxuries. Hamara kitna percent hai jo luxuries pe spend karega. So we are more into necessities. So if you want to tap and get into foreign markets and exports, so we need to do product development, innovation, or हमें करना है. This is what we need to do.
Bilkul. Seher, what would you say to that? Do you agree with all of that? Do you agree that innovation is necessary? And by innovation, I mean, Filza, I mentioned this to you. We have Mukesh, for example. Why hasn't anybody made Mukesh ponchos? Taran Teliani did it a few years ago, and they went crazy over it in India. Crazy over it. And I saw it, and I was like, हमारी मुल्तान की मुकेश 100 गुना ज़्यादा खूबसूरत है. ये तो सिर्फ एक मुकेश का तिनका डाल के पोंचो बना के जी बेच रहा है 300 पाउंड.
बीच पेयर ऑफ चुनरीज टू फ्रांस, एम्ब्रॉयडरीज के साथ ऐसे मुझे ख्याल आया कि चुनरियों के बीच कवर अप्स बना के ले जाऊं. And I sold them for like 100 euros one, एक चुनरी के दुपट्टे का with nothing, like a beach cover up. They would die for it. उस वक्त समझ ही नहीं थी, मैंने कहा ऐसे सी 150 की चुनरी, and it wasn't even produced by me. Chunri is a Bahawalpuri item.
हाँ, बिल्कुल। तो सेहर आप बताएं, what are your thoughts on this?
Absolutely, I agree with you. Innovation is the key right now. And like you said earlier, it's an age of fast fashion. People just don't want to repeat clothes. These girls, as you were saying, they're purchasing things at the age of 22 right now. So, how much purchasing power can they have, right? They want to
Exactly.
wear
Yes.
new stuff, to every gathering in front of friends, to the college that they go to. So when we talk about innovation, it's basically synergizing the technologically incentive system and the ecological system. So what you
Yeah.
have to do is, like you talked about malmal and khadr, okay? So you take that product and then how you innovate that should be according to the global trends. So it has to be a fusion. It has to be a holistic approach. And again, marketing is the key. For example, in the past few years, we have seen that a lot of emphasis has gone into organic eating. Everyone's going back to desi ghee. Everyone's going back to organic, whether it's wheat, whether it's rice, right, whether it's anything, because of the health benefits, right? But it's how they market it now. So if you start marketing these items as breathable items, zero cost to environment or climate, like it's all about marketing. There should be like one article somewhere in a internationally recognized publication about the benefits of organic eating, wearing organic material, breathable material like pure cotton, pure malmal, and then one of the designers taking it up, and then a whole revolution can start around it. So there are like different facets to it. How can you market the product? How you can make it more affordable? And that's where innovation also comes. So it can,
Absolutely. I
so
completely agree
technology,
with you.
yeah, so
But
technology and
you
local
know
handicraft
what
can go hand
I'm
in hand.
thinking? Sorry, Sarah, can you hear me? I don't
Yeah,
know.
I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you.
Sorry, my internet is lagging. You were saying technology. Please carry on.
Yeah, so technology and the local handicrafts can go hand in hand. They don't have to work in isolation from each other.
Absolutely. Do you feel, Seher, that the state has a role to play in this? Matlab ke, I remember in the early 90s when I was living abroad, Aksar Pakistan Embassy would have these, you know, cultural shows and वहाँ पे handicrafts आती थी and इस तरह की चीज़ें आती थी. Obviously, the world has changed, geopolitics, okay, regional issues, okay, whatnot, all these factors come into play. But
Hmm.
do you not think that the state can still promote so much of our culture
Hmm.
and it can be such a boost?
Absolutely. I think there are no policies actually in place also. Where is the crafts policy? There are no statistical data. You don't even know how much of employability is in the crafts sector. You don't
Yeah.
even know what its impact on economy can be, and there can be a huge impact because if we are talking about Pakistan, we are predominantly a rural based economical sector, and the highest amongst that is agriculture. So after agriculture, it's the handicrafts that these people produce in rural areas. But since we do not have any data present, we have no idea what the input of their sales is, and we can make so much profit out of it. So, and where does the state come in? They are the change makers. They have to provide subsidies to these people. They have to promote caucuses in districts, and then give these people incentives, marketing incentives, transport incentives, even like internet incentives, so that they can use the phones that they have, not only just talk to their relatives but actually use it as a tool to build businesses.
Absolutely. Filza, would you agree with all of that?
I didn't get you.
Would you agree with all of that? Sorry, my
Of
internet
course,
is
I would. The state has an amazing, it has the pivotal role to play because they have to be the enablers and the private sector has to be the initiator. But if they do not provide an enabling environment, how would the industry flourish? Like, do char jo, textile, leather, surgical, these are the only three industries that they're just pumping all the subsidies and everything into it. If they will
yeah.
not consider the cottage industry as an industry, तो वो जो इतना सारा employment ये sector cover करता है, where will those people go?
Yes.
Yeah, we don't have statistics right now on ground with us, but we have India and Bangladesh alongside. Our demographics are more or less the same. Look at them. Look, it's saddening to see कि अगर आप इंडिया के एक टांके का नाम डालते हो, जरदोजी डालते हो, तो उनकी स्पोर्ट्स निकल आती है, स्पोर्ट्स ऑफ जरदोजी. और हमारा अगर आप, my niece is doing a thesis, as I mentioned you, Mayor, a few days back.
I remember.
She was working on rural women, and she said, I don't see any statistics, no sector specific data on women. And all these women are talking about women economic empowerment, making gender focused policies. We even have data on which sector women are concentrated in, where are they working. Those top 4 or 5 names cannot represent the entire women working, the whole thing. So as she said, we need to have specific data. We need to have, then through the gender lens and through taking this industry, चलो फिर औरतों को भी छोड़ो यार, इस पूरी इंडस्ट्री को चाहे उसमें कारपेट भी आए, ब्लू पॉटरी भी आए, anything, jewelry to everything, it should be taken as handicraft पूरे को as an industry treat करना चाहिए. Maybe the volumes are low, but the employability in this sector, और जितना इस sector ने cover किया हुआ है, that is immense.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. And I think you've made a very, very crucial point that volume may be low, but the potential for employability, the potential to scale up, it's just unlimited. I mean, I look at, in what I've experienced is that there is so much potential for growth. It's just a matter of connecting with people, collaborating. I find that collaborating has often worked best when it comes to craft. And I genuinely feel that along with technology, marketing, innovation, जब तक collaboration नहीं होएगी, I don't see any brand, any organization, any craft sustaining itself. I mean, फिर जो आपने बात की टांकों की, वो टांके अब जो ख़त्म हो गए हैं वो ख़त्म हो गए हैं और वो क्यों ख़त्म हुए हैं बिकॉज देयर बिन नो कोलैबोरेशन जहाँ पे उन टांकों को एक प्लेटफॉर्म मिल सकता है एक प्रमोशन मिल सकती है वेदर इट्स चाहे कमीज़ पे हो लाइक यू सेड कि वो शर्ट का एक पाउच सा हो वट एवर इट इज़ but one definitely needs to collaborate. I've taken up a lot of your time because I've been totally engrossed, so I'm just going to have to end it here, although I'd love for this to carry on. So, say any last thoughts you'd like to share, as incorrect
Um,
as it sounds.
I think it's a very interesting discussion. Thank you so much, Meher, for having us here. And I'd like to separately talk to Fiza now because I didn't know that she was based in Multan and I have been working with women over there. So I'd like to pick her brain on a lot of things. So thank you for connecting
Do,
us.
please do. No, I'm more
Yeah.
than happy. Filza, up any last words, any last thoughts?
Meher's been amazing in connecting me with a lot of people recently. So thank you, Meher, for connecting me with her too. And thank you, Meher. It was amazing. मेरे तो दिल की आवाज है, तो मुझे बहुत मजा आता है to speak about it. I can go on for hours and hours. And thank you for connecting me to Seher. And let's get in touch, Sahar. And thank you for connecting me to a lot of other people too, Meher.
No, not at all. It's the least I can do. It's the very least I can do. Thank you, Seher, and thank you, Filsa, for joining us today. I think that craft does have a future. However, it's very clear that there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And while the efforts that you guys are making are commendable and beyond, it has to be a larger movement. And the donors, the state organizations, they all need to sort of acknowledge everything that you've said and take on board. So this is definitely a very important conversation. I wish we had more time to expand upon this, but maybe we'll see if we can have a second session. Thank you so very much for your time, ladies. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
And Filza and Seher, I'll just connect you guys as well separately. WhatsApp group.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Is it ended?
It hasn't. Yes, Georgia.